citizens speak out. People across Algeria, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Côte d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast, Libya, Morocco, Oman, Syria, Tunisia and Yemen are among those who have been striving to make their voices heard with calls for greater democracy, the release of political prisoners, freedom from oppression and martial law, and better jobs and wages.
To address citizens' demands for improved opportunities, Tunisia's Finance Minister Jalloul announced a 17-point social and economic recovery program Sunday to quickly create 40,000 jobs, provide grants to the young and disadvantaged families, and investment incentives in various regions.
On Sunday, April 3rd, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad appointed former Agriculture Minister Adel Safar as the new Prime Minister. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of protesters gathered to bury 9 fellow citizens who had been killed by security forces during demonstrations Friday. Minority leaders also sent a list of demands, including calls for the release of political prisoners, the lifting of emergency and martial law, and the withdrawal of security forces from towns and cities, stating they would not call for the president to step down if these demands were quickly met. Reuters news agency also reports that photographer Khaled al-Hariri was released following 6 days of detention.
On Sunday in Yemen, 3 people died and 1,700 were injured as police attacked protesters on the same day that the nation's parliament speaker rejected a transition plan presented by a political group as a way to peacefully advance the democratic progress. As 90,000 people gathered on Monday in the Yemeni city of Taiz, at least 11 were killed and more than 500 injured as protesters were attacked by government loyalists and police who fired tear gas and live ammunition into the crowd. Demonstrations were also held in the cities of Sana'a, Aden, Ib, and Hodeidah, with witnesses reporting live fire on protesters in Hodeidah.
Further evidence is surfacing about Libyan Colonel Muammar Gaddafi's desire to end conflict in the country through a political settlement. The New York Times cites an interview with a Libyan diplomat who claims that 2 of the leader's sons, Saif al-Islam and Sadi al-Gaddafi, have proposed that Saif oversees a caretaker government which would lead the country to a constitutional democracy. The New York Times further reports that Colonel Gaddafi appears to be in support of the proposal. Meanwhile, Atiq el-Obeidi, father of the woman who had appealed to journalists in Tripoli to tell her story of detention and sexual assault by Libyan government forces, states that his daughter is still missing and he fears for her safety. After successfully airlifting patients from Ajdabiya, Libya, the first emergency humanitarian flight sent by Qatar landed in her capital city, Doha, with a report from one of the patients that residential areas in Ajdabiya have been leveled to the ground and no medical aid available.
As violence continued to mount in Côte d'Ivoire, or Ivory Coast, especially in the city of Abidjan, French President Nicolas Sarkozy called for all 12,000 citizens staying in the country to prepare immediately for evacuation as the French military secured control of the Abidjan airport and began bringing citizens into protected areas. With regional UN headquarters also under attack by supporters of President Laurent Gbagbo, who has refused United Nations request to step down, the UN relocated about 200 of its essential staff in Abidjan to the northern city of Bouaké.
We are saddened by the loss of so many lives as we pray for the soon end to all conflict with harmony that prevails as people in all nations decide to live side by side in shared respect, freedom, and peace.
In sorrowful response to these unfortunate world events, Supreme Master Ching Hai lovingly reminds, if the road is wrong, the more we walk on it, the more we go wrong. Any leaders who committed harm to others should stop at once, sincerely repent to God, and act to redeem their mistaken deeds. Then they will be pardoned. Even if humans can't forgive, heaven will.
We don't have to go on snatching land, nor have we to hurry on converting man. It's not how many in a belief system, it's what become of them. It's not how crowded a religion, it's how much into world peace their contribution. It's not our words, it's rather louder our actions. What is going to be our legend in the long history of humans? Will it be right and just? Will it be noble and benevolent? Or just a grim picture soaked in anguished, bloody paint? Why always boast about our heavenly root? Oh, Almighty God's beloved children, while our life is tainted with all evils, while our survival is the cost of others' extinctions? What is the mark of the chosen? Is it just the bloodstain on your hands? Be it from animals or man's. Excerpt from a poem by Supreme Master Ching Hai, The Real Love.